everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be covering Hedera Hashgraph and of course the HBAR token. And now, ladies and gentlemen, is not the time to be giving up on this cryptocurrency project. In fact, the exact opposite is what you should be doing. You should be doubling down on what is a protocol, a distributed ledger that is clearly going to change the world in a big way. And that's what we're here to talk about in this video. This video was really inspired by a LinkedIn post that I saw from Matthew Sineve, who is the project manager of cloud and containers engineering at Costco Wholesale. Now, we all know what the company Costco Wholesales is. And of course, this individual is a project manager for cloud and containers engineering over there. And he actually wrote a post that we're going to be looking at in this video where he talks about Hedera and talks about its unique positioning and what it's going to enable. Then what we're actually going to do is talk about how this is being enabled. Hedera right now, in terms of core developers, there was a lot of FUD of people saying that it's lost all its developers. In actual fact, Hedera right now is second in regards to core developers working on the protocol to enable and implement this technology ready for tomorrow's digital world. And then what we're going to do is play a clip of Chris Larson talking about the unlock that these DLTs bring to the table. And this very much applies to Hedera. Certainly one area that Hedera is really shining in right now, and it's shining in many. It's kind of like the Swiss Army knife of blockchains, if you will. But one area it's really doing a lot in, with a partnership with NVIDIA, Equity Labs, and Intel, is IoT. Also, you see Seal SQ work with WiseKey, and obviously they're launching with SpaceX satellites into space. So we will be doing that. We'll do a quick price update. Just to kick things off, I like to come back to this from 21 Shares when they announced their offering of a Hedera ETP. Now, it seemed quite logical that they were going to do this, as Duncan Moore, of course, is on the board of Hedera. But when we interviewed him, he said the reason they've offered this is because there's a demand for it. Because people, obviously, it's not just us that have the vision in regards to what it's going to do in the future. It'll be people out there that have been technologists for a long time. But when they announced this, they said the enterprise-grade DLT just entered the ETP market. The enterprise-grade DLT. What you saw with the internet was companies have to remodel to embrace that technology. You're going to see a similar thing with DLTs. And Hedera Hashgraph is unbelievably well positioned in regards to already being ran and governed by some of the largest institutions in the world to continue to see that enterprise-grade adoption. In fact, as far as DLTs go today, I would say it has the most enterprises already actively looking to use and utilize it. Potentially barring Ethereum, which is going to bring me perfectly onto my next segment of this show, this update on Hedera. And that is this LinkedIn post from Matthew Sineve. Now, again, he's the project manager of cloud and containers engineering at Costco Wholesales. I don't know if there's a link between Hedera and Costco. And of course, this is his own opinion, not the company that he works for. He says, Hedera can run Ethereum smart contracts faster than Ethereum itself. With Chainlink, there is connectivity between networks. What's stopping millions, even billions of everyday transactions moving to Hedera, which I think it's going to enable in the future. It's fit for that. You know, it has sharding protocols and things like this that can enable that. You can also set up private sort of networks on Hedera. It's got a lot of tools in its kind of arsenal and was ultimately built to be used at scale, unlike many of these DLTs. And I think actually Bitcoin potentially could have been built to be used at scale, but that narrative was hijacked into a store of value narrative. Anyway, it goes on to say, every time an AI makes a decision, so we're talking about IoT here, every time a payment is settled, every time data is verified, each of these is a transaction. These are not just financial exchanges. They are the core actions that power our digital world. And it's all going to be moved on chain, by the way. This is why we're so bullish on DLT technology. And we think Hedera is just very well situated. And that's an opportunity, in my opinion, on a non-financial advisory basis, because we're not financial advisors here. On traditional systems or even older blockchains like Ethereum, high volumes of these transactions can lead to slow speeds. They can cause unpredictable costs and fees. They can create bottlenecks that is not starter or a non-starter for enterprise scale. This is where Hedera comes in and solves problems. He says this is precisely where Hedera offers an advantage. It is built for scale, fixed low fees. That is why visionary companies like Nvidia, Intel, and Equity Labs are leveraging Hedera for verifiable compute. In AI, they are using Hedera's unique speed, finality, and ultra-low fees. Hedera builds quietly. It's the infrastructure for a future powered by verifiable, high-volume digital transactions. And we wanted to share that with you. And it has been building quietly. In fact, how many of you guys know that in terms of core developers, Hedera is second? MetaMask and Ethereum basically share the same core developers. But then it's literally Hedera, Chainlink, ICP, OP, Mainnet, Cardano, Polkadot, Kusama, Cosmos Hub. But Hedera is literally second. And it doesn't get, the reason we make content on it is because it doesn't get the love it deserves. And I think I think it's probably one of the best positioned DLTs to actually capture institutional or more enterprise sort of grade use cases on this sort of network of networks, internet of blockchains, if you will. And I think there's going to be a major unlock that happens with Chainlink, CCIP, and things like this. Remember, Chainlink, again, just to remind people, is a governing council member also of Hedera. What I want to do now, rather interestingly, is play you guys a clip of Chris Larsen, who is Ripple's sort of co-founder. Somebody that I think understood crypto back then probably better than anybody did. He's sort of eased off a little bit in regards to his role at Ripple, but still an unbelievable visionary. And he really talks about IoT here and a kind of Keynesian explosion, or a kind of explosion in regards to activity, economic activity. And he also talks about sort of machine-to-machine transactions. And I think Hedera is very well positioned for all that. So let's go ahead and dive into this.
Bases or ledgers through the phone companies perhaps, or through banks at the bottom. But there's that missing layer of what is the IP, what is the shipping container that's going to wire them all together. And that's the part, thankfully, that's being introduced. Now, when you combine then those new apps, those new devices, those new databases with an interoperability layer, boom. I mean, that changes the world overnight. And I think we're so close to that. And that will create this Cambrian explosion of some of the companies here that will suddenly have this global platform to be working on, which will make fintech so much easier. Everybody in fintech knows how difficult it is just within a country, let alone to try to go global. That is all about to change. It will create huge economic growth, just like that shipping container did, just like the internet connecting 3 billion people and growing, about a 20% increase in global GDP in about 5 years. So the implications here are huge. And governments have really been getting behind this. That's what's really encouraging. In 2014, it was kind of dark days for regulation in blockchain in the space. Now, I think the regulators are getting behind systems that make sense, like interoperability, and getting behind digital assets. Because again, the cryptocurrencies, the digital assets, whatever you want to call them, they also play a key role in that. Once you get the plumbing in place, those new types of assets that have no counterparties create incredible efficiencies to reduce capital that has to otherwise be kept by banks all over the world. Could be used for IoT, because again, probably once you get that infrastructure in place, most payments will be machine to machine. So that also kind of, again, once you solve the developing world problem, that also solves the IoT problem. So the explosion in the number of transactions is tremendous, and that drives a lot of what the demand for digital assets, which regulators and banks are getting behind now.
Play that clip for really two reasons. One is just the overall kind of productivity explosion that this technology is going to cause or enable. And he also mentions IoT there. And actually, Hedera is very well positioned for this. It's already doing it in the form of sort of verifiable compute, verifiable AI, and there's a beautiful marrying between AI and DLT. You've got CLSQ, WiseKey, and SpaceX doing a similar thing, all leveraging Hedera. The world is going to have to adopt this technology, and Hedera is extremely well placed. And from a price point of view, this is perfect. I mean, our accumulation of Hedera, I don't understand the kind of distaste for Hedera. Certainly if you watch this channel in the comment section, this has been our accumulative period for Hedera. Since then, it did an 80% rally. It's retraced and retested the point from whence it came, a resistance into support flip, and then you're going to see continuation. You've got 90% probabilities, according to Bloomberg's analyst, that you get ETFs this year. Hedera specifically 90% probability. There's 95% probabilities that you see the crypto basket ETFs like Grayscale Digital Large Cap Fund, and that the deadline for that is actually on Wednesday. You're going to be watching that video on this video on Monday. That could all align with technically what we're looking at. Certainly something like Hedera Hashgraph. In fact, the opposite is true. Interesting post from the individual who works at Costco Wholesales. I think he's very much right, and we're going to see that shift take place as we start to enter a connected world. That's it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you. Thanks for watching. See you all in the next.